Chapter 274. After the two beasts were killed, there was no more movement from the stone door. "Little blood, break open the stone door!" Lu Ming shouted. The blood demon roared and ran toward the stone door. Boom! It hit the stone door heavily, and the stone door shook violently. The whole world seemed to be shaking. However, the stone door did not open. "Continue!" Lu Ming shouted. The blood demon continued to attack, and the stone door shook continuously. Finally it opened a gap. Boom! At this moment Lu Ming seemed to hear a deafening roar coming from outside the stone door. What's going on? Lu Ming frowned. However, he did not have time to think. He ran forward and shouted, "Let's go out!" Xian Yanqing followed closely behind. Roar! At this moment the sanguine demon roared and stopped in its tracks. A thought was transmitted to Lu Ming's mind. Lu Ming roughly understood what the sanguine demon meant. It was born here and could not get out. Once it got out, it would turn into ashes. Lu Ming felt that it was a pity. If such a powerful blood demon followed them out, he would be able to defeat the Blazing Sun Empire and even the Shifang Sword faction. What a pity! Lu Ming roared in his mind, but there was nothing he could do. He could only leave the blood demon and run toward the stone door with Xian Yanqing. The stone door was too big. Although it was only a gap, it was enough for the two of them to pass through. Whoosh! Whoosh! The two of them were like the wind. When they passed through the stone door, they felt the world spinning. The next moment they found themselves standing on a hill. Behind them there was a blood-red mist. It was the blood demon cave. In front of them there were green mountains and clear waters. However, at this moment the mountain in front of them shook. A blood-red beam of light shot up into the sky. It could be seen from 100 miles away. Rumble! On the side, another mountain shook. Then another blood-red beam of light shot out, stirring up the wind and clouds. Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing were dumbfounded. Where was this? Why did it look so unfamiliar? Furthermore, could it be that this blood-red pillar of light was caused by them opening the giant stone door? Whoosh! Whoosh! At that moment, the sound of something breaking through the air could be heard. Then a few figures appeared in the sky. They were a few middle-aged burly men. Their auras were as thick as mountains. It was obvious that they were all martial arts grandmasters. Something is happening outside the Blood Domain Devil Cave. Could it be that a rare treasure has appeared? Hurry and inform the sect. The few burly men whispered. Then they stepped into the air and disappeared. However, not long after, more people arrived. Some of them were flying through the air. They were all strong cultivators of the martial ancestor realm. There were also some great martial teachers. Through these people's conversations, Lu Ming learned a fact that left him dumbfounded. This place was not within the Burning Sun Empire, but on the other side of the desolate wasteland, the border between the Blood Zhao Empire and the Dark Moon Empire. Lu Ming and the others had actually run in the wrong direction. Lu Ming didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He and Xian Yanqing stared at each other. Rumble! The tremors became more and more intense. In the end, a total of 9 blood-colored light pillars appeared and shot into the sky. At this time, more than 100 people had gathered. This place is most likely the remains of the ancient sect. Cloud Emperor Palace, a white-haired elder in the sky speculated. What? It's the ancient sect, Cloud Emperor Palace? Some people were shocked and puzzled. That's a senior from the Great Sun Constabulary. His speculation shouldn't be wrong. That's right. The Great Sun Constabulary is the #1 sect in the Blood Zhao Empire. It has existed for a long time and is knowledgeable. I can't wait. Haha. This is a great opportunity. Nearby, some people were discussing excitedly. The ancient sect, Cloud Emperor Palace. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. The Cloud Emperor Mountain Range was called the Cloud Emperor Mountain Range because of Cloud Emperor Palace. This showed how powerful Cloud Emperor Palace was. If this place was the remains of Cloud Emperor Palace, Lu Ming would definitely explore it. He didn't want to miss it. Everyone waited quietly. Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing sat cross-legged on the side, healing their injuries and waiting. As time passed, more and more people arrived. Obviously, the news had spread. 7 days later, there was a sea of people in all directions. Even the sky was filled with people. There were people from the Blood Zhao Empire and the Inuit Empire. Of course, most of them were from the Blood Zhao Empire. Lu Ming sighed inwardly. The Bloodjiao Empire was indeed powerful. Those standing in the sky were all grandmasters. There were at least 1,000 of them. The Bloodjiao Empire was indeed a medium-sized empire. It was terrifying. There are hundreds of experts from the Great Sun Constabulary and their core elders. It seems like we won't get a share of Cloud Emperor Palace's remains. Yeah, there are many experts from the other sects in the Bloodjiao Empire. The Inuit Empire's imperial family is also here. There are many young experts, such as the 50 superstars of the Bloodjiao Empire and the 9 heroes of the Inuit Empire. Discussions could be heard from time to time. Caw. At this moment, a sharp cry resounded in the sky. It was extremely ear-piercing. Then a giant crow appeared in the sky. The crow was extremely large. Its wingspan was 30 meters. Its body was covered in blazing flames and its demonic aura was extremely terrifying. It was a Class 4 demonic beast. A Class 4 demonic beast was equivalent to a martial ancestor martial artist. A young man in his 20s stood on the back of the crow. He was wearing a fiery red robe with a large sun embroidered on it. He had his hands behind his back and looked at the blood-red light pillars. He had an aura of disdain. Yang Liuji, this is Yang Liuji, the 33rd on the Emperor Yun leaderboard? Other than him, who else could it be? Even the geniuses on the Emperor Yun leaderboard are here. There was a commotion in the crowd. Obviously, Yang Liuji's name had shaken everyone. 33rd on the Emperor Yun leaderboard? Is this person stronger than Qiu Changkong? Lu Ming's eyes lit up. The 36 geniuses on the Emperor Yun leaderboard could be said to be the strongest of their generation in the 36 countries of Emperor Yun. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, another 2 days had passed. At this time, Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing had already recovered from their injuries. Boom! Suddenly, the 9 blood-red light pillars let out a violent roar and shone brightly. They then gathered together. After a while, the blood-red light disappeared and a giant black vortex appeared in the sky. The space teleportation path will lead to the remains of Emperor Yun Palace. Charge! Suddenly, dozens of people charged into the vortex. Ah! Ah! In the next moment, screams were heard. Among the dozens of people, more than half of their bodies suddenly exploded. Their flesh and blood splattered all over the ground. However, the other half of the people rushed into the whirlpool and disappeared. What's going on? How can this be? Why did some people die and others charge into the vortex? What are the restrictions? Everyone stopped and did not dare to charge into the vortex. A white-haired elder appeared in front of the vortex and observed it carefully. Everyone recognized that he was a core elder of the Great Sun Constabulary. Chapter 275. What? Time inscriptions? Everyone was shocked. Time inscriptions were supreme inscriptions, and it was extremely difficult to master them. According to my speculation, the age of those who enter this place is limited. Those who exceed a certain age will be killed by the inscription formation in the vortex. The white-haired old man said again. Then how old can we be and how old can we be? Someone asked. The world uses the age of 30 as a key classification. Those under 30 are the younger generation, which is the golden age for cultivation. So I speculate that those under 30 can enter this place, but those above 30 can't. The white-haired old man said. 30 years old? I've already surpassed that. I'm just 31 years old. How unlucky. Many people who were over the age of 30 had dejected expressions on their faces. They were cursing their bad luck. As for those under the age of 30, they were overjoyed. The stronger their cultivation, the happier they were. Since the older generation couldn't enter, those with powerful cultivation would naturally have an advantage. How could they not be happy? Let's go. Immediately, some young people under 30 rushed up. They disappeared into the vortex one by one. Ha ha ha, you ants want to compete with me. Yang Liuji laughed wildly. Of all the geniuses on the Imperial Cloud ranking list, he was the only one here. Who could compete with him? He stepped out, walked into the vortex and disappeared. The other young people also rushed in like a swarm of bees. Lu Ming estimated that there were at least a few thousand of them. During this period, there were also those over 30 who didn't believe it and wanted to take a chance. In the end, they were all killed by the inscription formation. After that, those over 30 didn't dare to try again. Let's go in too, Lu Ming said to Xian Yanqing. Xian Yanqing nodded and rushed into the vortex with Lu Ming. After rushing into the vortex, the world was spinning. The next moment, Lu Ming found that he was standing at the foot of a mountain. In front of him was a boundless mountain. Xian Yanqing was right beside him. Not only that, it seemed that everyone had gathered at the foot of the mountain. At first glance, there were people everywhere. Boom! Suddenly, not far away from Lu Ming, a great battle broke out. The people who entered this place came from various factions. Some of them had grudges with each other, so it was normal for a fight to break out when they met. After a while, a miserable cry rang out as a young man was killed. But at this moment, a sudden change occurred. Inscriptions suddenly appeared in the sky, wrapping around the young man who had been killed. The next moment, a shocking scene appeared. The blood in the young man's body, including his essence blood, was all extracted. Under the effect of the inscriptions, the blood turned into a blood-colored crystal and fell to the ground. Could this be the blood refining crystal? It's the blood refining crystal. It's true. I have it with me. What? A dead person can actually be refined into a blood refining crystal. Unbelievable. A shocking uproar broke out among the crowd. Lu Ming was also shocked. The effect of the blood refining crystal was very similar to that of the blood refining pill. They were both used by martial artists to awaken their second bloodline. The effect of a blood refining crystal was similar to a blood refining pill. We'll know once we try. Suddenly a cold shout sounded. Amidst the crowd, a sun emerged and exploded with a loud bang. There were endless screams and more than a dozen people were killed. The next moment, a large number of inscriptions appeared in the sky, wrapping around the corpses. Then all the blood in the corpses was extracted and refined into blood refining crystals. It was true. Many people gasped, and many of them had bloodthirsty eyes. Kill! Kill! Suddenly, someone roared and charged toward the people around him. Oh no, run! Someone shouted and rushed toward the vast mountains in front of them. The scene was in chaos and the smell of blood filled the air. Dense inscriptions appeared in the sky. The blood of those who were killed turned into blood refining crystals. Kill! There were also people who charged toward Lu Ming. Lu Ming swept out with his long spear and hit the other party. The other party was repelled. Xian Yanqing, let's go. Let's rush into those mountains. Lu Ming shouted. There were too many geniuses who had entered this time. Most of them were young experts of the Blood Zhao Empire. There were many young experts of the martial ancestor realm. With Lu Ming's combat strength, he could only be ranked in the middle. He had to retreat for the time being. The two of them rushed toward the vast mountains. Soon they rushed into the mountains and continued to run toward the depths of the mountains. Behind them there were people rushing into the mountains. Thousands of people spread out in the vast mountains. Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing ran for more than 200 miles before they stopped. In the next period of time, this place will turn into a killing hell, Lu Ming whispered. He could imagine how crazy it was to kill others and turn them into blood-refining crystals. The young people who had entered would definitely kill each other. Although the young experts of the martial ancestor realm did not need the blood-refining crystals, they could sell them at a shocking price. Lu Ming, we have to break through to the martial ancestor realm as soon as possible. Otherwise, we will be in a passive position, Xian Yanqing said. In this unfamiliar environment where they were facing strong enemies everywhere, the two of them had unknowingly become closer to each other. That's right, but it's not easy to break through. Let's look around and see if there are any treasures, Lu Ming said. The two of them chose a direction at random and ran forward. Whoosh! Whoosh! Suddenly, a sharp piercing sound could be heard as a few sword cheese were fired toward the two of them. Someone was trying to ambush them. The two of them were startled and dodged the attacks with a flicker. Then, 8 figures appeared in a flash and surrounded the two of them. Consider yourself unlucky. Now turn into our blood-refining crystals. A young man who was the leader of the 8 said coldly. He was the strongest among the 8 of them. His aura was extremely strong, indicating that he was a first-layer martial ancestor realm expert. The other 7 of them were also 9th-layer martial masters. 6 Senior brother, this girl is so beautiful. It's a pity to kill her like this. Why don't you let me have some fun with her first before killing her? One of them, a short and fat youth, was looking at Xian Yanqing with a lewd expression. His eyes were filled with a perverted light. His crotch was actually bulging. Fatty Lu, put away your lewd thoughts. Where are we? Let's end this quickly. Otherwise you won't even know how you died. Sixth senior brother scolded. The short and fat young man laughed. However, when he looked at Xian Yanqing, the lust in his eyes became stronger. He did not notice the murderous intent in Xian Yanqing's eyes. This guy is so pitiful. Lu Ming shook his head. In his heart he was already mourning for this fatty. He even dared to flirt with Xian Yanqing. He was courting death. You're dead. As expected, a cold voice came from Xian Yanqing's mouth. What? I'm dead? You want to kill me? Haha, what a joke. Didn't you see that my sixth senior brother is a martial ancestor realm expert? You're just a martial grandmaster. How dare you try to kill me in front of a martial ancestor realm expert? What a joke. My baby. Chapter 276. The short and fat youth screamed at the top of his lungs. His screams were so tragic that the fat on his body kept shaking. A bloodstain could be seen at his crotch area. As for his thing, it had disappeared without a trace. Lu Ming could not help but tighten his crotch. He had seen clearly that Xian Yanqing had flicked her fingers and a black lotus petal flew out and cut off the short and fat youth's penis. When the other youths saw this, they also felt a chill in their crotches. Sixth senior brother, avenge me. The short and fat youth continued to scream. Bitch, you are courting death. Attack, kill them. The sixth senior brother shouted and charged at Lu Ming. He wanted to kill Lu Ming first and then torture Xian Yanqing. Human Dao Palm. Lu Ming did not bother to talk nonsense and directly used his most powerful move. A huge palm print suddenly formed above sixth senior brother's head and slammed down. Its power was so strong that it was shocking to the extreme. The sixth senior brother was shocked. He had not expected Lu Ming's attack to be so terrifying. He immediately used all his strength to block the attack. Bang! With a loud bang, the sixth senior brother was directly smashed into the ground and a big pit was formed. When the smoke and dust disappeared, the sixth senior brother was lying in the big pit like a pile of mud and was dying. The other six youths were stunned. Then they trembled and broke out in cold sweat. One move, he killed the sixth senior brother, who was a martial grandmaster with one move. Was he still a great martial mentor? The short and fat youth forgot to scream and widened his eyes in horror. Run! One of the youths shouted and the other six youths turned and ran. Wait for me! The short and fat youth screamed. However, he could not run fast because of the sharp pain in his crotch. He was so anxious that he was about to cry. Want to run? Do you think you can run? Xian Yanqing's voice was as cold as the winter snow. She waved her hands and black lotus petals flew out. The short and fat youth was the first to bear the brunt of the attack. He was killed before he could even scream. Swoosh! Swoosh! The flower petals pierced through the air, sharper than the sharpest blade. In just a few breaths of time, the six youths were all killed. At this moment, the sixth senior brother was no longer breathing. Inscriptions immediately appeared in the sky, extracting the blood from the corpses and condensing them into blood-refining crystals. However, not everyone could condense a blood-refining crystal. Lu Ming discovered that only a rank 5 bloodline martial practitioner could condense a blood-refining crystal. Those with bloodlines below rank 5 would have their blood energy dissipated before they could condense a single blood-refining crystal. One of the young men had a rank 6 bloodline, and he was able to condense 2 blood-refining crystals. As for the sixth senior brother, as a martial ancestor, he had awakened his second bloodline. His second bloodline was a common rank 9 bloodline. In an instant he had formed 16 blood-refining crystals. Every time one's bloodline increased by a level, the number of blood-refining crystals condensed would double. It had nothing to do with cultivation. The 8 of them condensed a total of 22 blood-refining crystals. Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing shared the crystals equally. Each of them received 11 crystals. Then the 2 of them left the place. Along the way, the 2 of them were ambushed a few more times. However, the strongest enemy was only a rank 1 martial ancestor. They were all killed by the 2 of them, and each of them received more than 10 blood-refining crystals. Although Lu Ming had 4,000 blood-refining elixirs, the more the better. The stronger his second bloodline was, the more likely he could awaken a higher-level bloodline. According to Supreme Nine's Sons, his first bloodline was awakened by the 9 dragon blood essence. However, his second bloodline had nothing to do with the 9 dragon blood essence. It was his own bloodline that was awakened. Lu Ming's bloodline was not of a high level. Lu Yao had taken away his bloodline and awakened a rank 5 bloodline. From this, it could be seen that Lu Ming's first bloodline was not higher than rank 5. Therefore, his second bloodline was probably not of a high level. Therefore, he would need a large number of blood-refining elixirs and blood-refining crystals. The second bloodline was very special. Some people might not even use a blood-refining pill or other treasures to replenish their bloodline potential, but they could still awaken an extremely high-level bloodline. However, this was not absolute. Consuming treasures such as blood-refining pills or blood-refining crystals would increase the chances of awakening a high-level bloodline. Half an hour later, the two of them appeared in front of a huge 7-story building. This building was shaped like a tower. In front of the tower, hundreds of young men stood facing each other. They were all staring at the tower. The gate of the tower was tightly shut. I've tried it just now. This gate is extremely heavy and cannot be opened by one person or a few people. I suggest that we work together to open the gate. As for the treasures inside, we'll let our strength speak for itself. A young man in a brocade robe shouted, "Who knows if you will sneak up on us when we open the gate? I'm worried." A young man who looked like a skinny monkey shouted, "If you're worried, you can get lost now." The young man in the brocade robe was very domineering. The skinny young man's face turned ugly, but he did not dare to refute. You want the treasures but don't have the guts. You're destined to be a good-for-nothing. The young man in the brocade robe mocked. He then looked at the others and said, "How about it? Do you want to work together to open the gate of the tower?" "All right, I agree to work together." "I agree too." Almost everyone agreed to it. If they wanted to get the treasures inside, they had to open the gate first. Attack together. The young man in the brocade robe shouted and threw out a powerful punch. Attack. The others attacked together. Suddenly, all kinds of sword chi, saber chi, fist chi, palm chi, etc. were thrown at the gate of the tower. Boom, boom, boom. The tower rumbled and flashed. Finally, with a loud bang, the gate was blasted open. Whoosh! Whoosh! Immediately, dozens of people rushed toward the gate, afraid that the treasures would be taken away by others if they were too slow. Ah! Ah! However, in the next moment, shrill screams could be heard. At least 20 of the people who rushed into the gate screamed as their heads suddenly exploded. The other people were all martial ancestor realm elites. They attacked the surroundings as if they were fighting against something. Inscriptions appeared in the sky and the young men who were killed were all condensed into blood refinement crystals. What's there? Outside the gate, someone shouted in fear. I don't know. I can't see clearly. It's too strange. I better not go in. Someone wanted to retreat. At that moment, the martial ancestor realm elites had already rushed in and disappeared. It's a type of blood red bug. Lu Ming stared at the gate with bright eyes. With his eyesight he could see the attack. It was a type of blood red bug that was as thin as a hair and as long as a cicada. Most importantly, it was so fast that it could not be seen with the naked eye. Only martial ancestor realm elites could see it. As long as the blood red cicada rushed into the head would explode. Let's go in. The other martial ancestor realm elites rushed in. Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing moved and followed the crowd. Pust! As soon as he rushed in, a blood-red cicada shot toward him. He swept out his spear and sent the cicada flying. Then he rushed in. Chapter 277. After Lu Ming rushed in, he picked up a few blood-refining crystals along the way. Nest, why are those two martial Grand Masters so powerful? Outside, the warriors in the great martial mentor realm were dumbfounded. After Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing rushed in, they saw a wide staircase that led to the second floor. Without hesitation, the two of them rushed up and found that there were shelves on the second floor. The shelves were empty, but there were a few dried corpses on the side of the shelves. It was obvious that they had been killed and their blood had been extracted to condense into blood-refining crystals. Obviously, the things here had been looted by the people who rushed in first. Quick, go up. Get lost. Go to hell. You're the one who's going to die. The scene was in chaos. Everyone wanted to rush up. Naturally, there was chaos. 7 or 8 people were fighting. Whoosh! A young man with a battle axe chopped at Lu Ming. His cultivation of first martial ancestor realm was revealed. Do you really think I'm a pushover? Lu Ming's eyes turned cold. He threw out a huge palm print at the young man. Bang! The young man's bones were broken and he was thrown back. However, he did not die because he had also cultivated an earth-class martial skill, which blocked part of the power of the human Dao palm. Even so, the other young powerful figures were alarmed and they looked at Lu Ming with fear. Where did such a powerful martial grandmaster come from? I've seen the strongest martial grandmasters in the Bloodjiao Empire, but I've never seen such a person, someone said with a serious face. The others looked at Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing with fear. Lu Ming ignored them and rushed to the 3rd floor with Xian Yanqing. There were also a few shelves on the 3rd floor. The items on the shelves had also been looted. Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing did not stop and kept rushing up. The 4th floor, the 5th floor, the 6th floor. Until they reached the 6th floor, the two of them were always one step behind the others. Everything was looted. When they reached the 6th floor, they heard fierce fighting sounds coming from the 7th floor. The two of them rushed up without hesitation. Boom! Boom! On the 7th floor, 6 young men were engaged in an intense battle. One of them was the young man in the brocade robe. His cultivation was at the 2nd layer martial ancestor realm, and he was definitely a genius. The other 5 had a cultivation of the 1st layer martial ancestor realm. The battle was incomparably intense. The 6 of them were tangled up in a chaotic battle, but it was obvious that the young man in the brocade robe had the upper hand. On the 7th floor, there were only 2 shelves with some jade bottles on them. On the shelf was written, Yuan Ancient Panacea, Level 4 Middle Grade Medicinal Pill. Lu Ming was greatly shocked, and then his eyes emitted a shocking light. The Yuan Ancient Panacea was a middle LV4 elixir that could increase one's cultivation level quickly. It was extremely useful for a martial arts grandmaster. In the outside world, the price of Yuan Ancient Spirit Pills was shockingly high. Moreover, there was often a price but no market. I have to get my hands on some of them. That way, my cultivation will be able to reach the peak of the 9th layer martial master realm in a short period of time. I will then consume the blood-refining pills and blood-refining crystals to refine my bloodline and break through to the martial ancestor realm. Lu Ming pondered quickly in his heart. In this place, Lu Ming did not have time to consume the blood essence of others. The blood essence of the martial artists who had died in the battle had all been refined into blood-refining crystals. Without consuming the blood essence, Lu Ming's cultivation would not be able to increase in a short period of time. The Yuan Ancient Panacea had appeared at the right time. You want to compete with me? You are courting death. The young man in the brocade roared. His eyes were like lightning, and his body emitted a strong purple light. He threw out a palm and a purple palm print appeared. It was extremely powerful, and the other young men quickly retreated. Zisong, there are so many people here. Do you want to take the Yuan Ancient Panacea for yourself? How is that possible? Another young man shouted. Is that so? Then I will kill you first. Purple golden dragon palm. Zisong roared, and the purple light on his body became extremely dense. When it reached a certain level, the purple light turned golden. He threw out a palm and a golden dragon roared out. Bam! The young man was hit by the golden dragon and was sent flying. He coughed out a mouthful of blood, and his aura was extremely weak. His eyes were filled with shock. Is it possible now? Zisong looked coldly at the young man, and then looked at the others. The other 4 young men's faces changed. Hurry up and get lost. If you don't, you will end up like him. Zisong's aura was domineering, and he looked coldly at the others. Zisong, there are 4 of us. Even if we join forces, we might not be afraid of you. A tall young man said unwillingly. As for Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing, they were ignored by him. Boom! As soon as the tall young man finished his words, Zisong threw out a palm, and a golden dragon rushed out. With a scream, the young man was torn into two by the golden dragon. His blood essence was condensed into 16 blood-refining crystals, which were kept by Zisong. You still want to join forces? This is the consequence. Zisong sneered. The remaining 3 young men were horrified. Zisong was too strong, and they were no match for him when he used his ultimate move. They looked at each other, and finally retreated from the 6th floor unwillingly. Why aren't the 2 of you scramming? At this moment, Zisong looked at Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing. Scramming? Why don't you get lost? Lu Ming smiled faintly. Instantly Zisong's face darkened and he said, Kid, do you know the consequences of your words? Now you can't leave even if you want to. 2 mere martial grandmasters want to get their hands on the Yuan ancient panacea. You really don't know your limits. Zisong looked down at Lu Ming in a condescending manner as he walked toward Lu Ming. Kid, do you want to commit suicide or do you want me to do it? If I do it, you won't die so easily. Also, girl, if you swear to be my concubine and serve me well for the rest of your life, I promise to let you go. Zisong's gaze towards Xian Yanqing flashed with a trace of blazing light. Xian Yanqing's beauty was indeed rare in the world. Any man who saw her would be tempted. Trash like you, do you think you are worthy? Xian Yanqing sneered. Since you want to do it the hard way, I'll send you on your way. Zisong's body emitted a cold murderous intent, and he slapped towards Lu Ming. A purple palm print surged forward. Lu Ming's eyes flashed and he slapped out as well. The human Dao palm was formed. Boom! The 2 palm prints collided and there was a loud bang. Lu Ming's figure swayed slightly while Zisong retreated 3 steps before he could stabilize himself. At this moment, his face was filled with disbelief. A mere martial grandmaster of the 9th level could actually force him back with a single palm. How was that possible? Then an incomparably cold murderous intent burst out, and he roared, damn it, go to hell. The purple light on Zisong's body became extremely dense, and then it turned golden. He slapped out and a golden dragon pounced out. The golden dragon merged with a powerful force. Chapter 278. Human Path Palm. Lu Ming shouted and struck out with his palm again. Lu Ming used all his strength and integrated the force of wind and fire into his palm. Boom! The human path palm collided with the golden dragon. There was a loud explosion and the human path palm shattered inch by inch. A terrifying force surged towards Lu Ming and Lu Ming could not help but retreat. Zisong's combat strength was indeed extremely powerful. Lu Ming realized that as his cultivation increased, the opponents he faced became stronger. When facing these young martial arts grandmasters, his advantage in many aspects was not so obvious. These young martial arts grandmasters had all cultivated earth-class martial skills and had comprehended the force. Moreover, they were not weak at all. Although Lu Ming had a slight advantage in terms of martial skills and force, it was not by much. Furthermore, how could the martial arts grandmasters cultivate yellow-class martial skills? Normally, they would cultivate black-class upper-class martial skills. It was not surprising that some of them cultivated earth-class martial skills. The higher the level of the martial skill, the thicker and more condensed the genuine qi that was cultivated. Lu Ming's genuine qi could not possibly be 5 times that of these people. Therefore, his advantage was further reduced. It was even more difficult to fight someone of a higher level. Therefore, Lu Ming was forced to retreat by Zisong. However, Zisong was even more shocked. He was a peerless genius and not an ordinary second-realm martial arts grandmaster. He could not believe that his full-strength palm could only force Lu Ming to retreat and did not kill him. Kill, this brat is more talented than me. He cannot be left alive in this world. Zisong roared in his heart and attacked Lu Ming again. Chi. At that moment, Xian Yanqing also attacked. Black lotuses formed around her body and the black petals danced in the air, enveloping Zisong. At the same time, she waved her palms and black palm prints whizzed out. Bitch, you are courting death. Zisong shouted and used a portion of his power to attack Xian Yanqing. Boom! Boom! Immediately, the 3 of them engaged in a great battle. Xian Yanqing's battle prowess was also extremely shocking. He was not the slightest bit inferior to Lu Ming's. The 2 of them joined forces and fought Zisong to a draw. Zisong's expression was extremely gloomy. The more they fought, the more frightened he became. The three of them fought fiercely, and powerful qi shot out in all directions. However, inscriptions appeared on the walls of the 7th floor, reducing most of the power. Otherwise, those Yuan ancient panaceas would have been shattered. In the blink of an eye, more than 50 moves had passed. On the 6th floor, the three young men of the first martial ancestor realm stood there. When they heard the violent explosions coming from the 7th floor, they looked at each other. Who was Zisong fighting with? Could it be the man and woman of the 9th level martial grand master from before? But how was that possible? Two young men and women of the 9th level of the martial master realm were able to fight Zisong to such an extent? Then what were they? Trash? They found it hard to believe. But other than the two young men and woman, there was no one else up there. The three decided to wait on the 6th floor. Die! Die for me! Zisong roared furiously. The golden glow on his body was extremely dense. He roared furiously in his heart. He wanted to kill Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing, but he was unable to do so. After a while, the golden glow on Zisong's body began to dissipate rapidly. Damn it, damn it. You two pieces of trash. Cheating couple, just you wait. If I don't kill you, I swear I'm not a human. Zisong roared angrily, waving his palms continuously to block Lu Ming's and Xian Yanqing's attacks. He then broke into a run and ran toward the 6th floor, disappearing down the stairs in an instant. Maintaining the golden glow consumed a great amount of his qi. He could no longer hold on and could only run away. Otherwise, he would be killed by Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing. On the 6th floor, the three youths were waiting. Suddenly, they saw Zisong rush down from the 7th floor at an extremely fast speed. He ran down the stairs as if he was on fire. This caused the three young men to be stunned. Could it be that Zisong was defeated? The three young men looked at each other and gasped. Then, without hesitation, they ran away as well. On the 7th floor, Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing looked around. There were 2 shelves and there were jade bottles on each shelf. All of them were Yuan ancient panaceas. Let's split it evenly. Lu Ming smiled and walked toward one of the shelves while Xian Yanqing walked toward the other shelf. Lu Ming glanced at the shelves and counted that there were a total of 49 jade bottles. Lu Ming picked up a jade bottle and opened it. He smelled a strong medicinal fragrance. Inside the jade bottle there were 9 round milky white pills. Lu Ming was overjoyed. He waved his hand and kept all the jade bottles in the Temple of Paragon. On the other hand, Xian Yanqing kept the Yuan ancient panaceas and smiled. With these Yuan ancient panaceas, I will be able to reach the martial ancestor realm very soon. At that time, I will trample you under my feet. Xian Yanqing looked at Lu Ming and said viciously. Lu Ming was speechless. Why does this girl keep thinking about this? Xian Yanqing walked down the stairs while Lu Ming smiled and followed closely behind. When they reached the bottom of the stairs, there was no one around. When the two of them walked out of the pavilion, they realized that the people outside had all left. No one knew how long they could stay in the secret land and no one was willing to waste time. Since they couldn't do it here, they would look for other places. The two of them exited the pavilion, randomly chose a direction, and ran at top speed. They wanted to find a quiet place to consume the Yuan ancient panaceas to raise their cultivation. Half an hour later, the two of them passed by a dilapidated palace. Run! Zhao Hong, one of the 50 supernovas of the Blood Zhao Empire, is in there. Terrified shouts could be heard from the dilapidated palace. Then, more than 20 young men ran out of the dilapidated palace in fear. Die! A cold voice that was filled with killing intent could be heard from the dilapidated palace. Then, a terrifying saber light slashed out. Ah! Ah! Shrill screams could be heard. More than 20 young men were killed by the saber. Inscriptions filled the sky and blood-refining crystals condensed one after another. A young man with messy hair and a long saber on his back stepped out. With a wave of his hand, he kept all the blood-refining crystals. Then he looked in front of him. A piercing killing intent spread out from his body. 1,000 meters away, Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing's faces changed. Let's go! Lu Ming shouted and left the place quickly with Xian Yanqing. This young man was too strong. The two of them were no match for him. The 50 supernovas of the Blood Zhao Empire were on the same level as the 6 heroes of the Burning Sun Empire. Looking at Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing's figures, Zhao Hong's eyes flashed. He didn't chase after them. Instead, he turned around and entered the dilapidated palace. 50 miles away, in a valley, miserable screams could be heard. It's Duanling, one of the 9 heroes of the Yin Moon Empire. Don't kill me. In the next moment, a shocking sword qi burst out from the valley. More than 10 young men were killed by the sword and turned into blood-refining crystals. Whether it was the first or second level of the martial ancestor realm, they couldn't escape the fate of being killed. Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing, who saw this scene from afar, didn't stop. They turned around and left. A few hundred miles away from Lu Ming and the others, Yang Liuji laughed in the ruins. There were at least 50 young men's corpses lying around him. Their blood qi had been condensed into blood-refining crystals. Chapter 279. An hour later, the two of them appeared in a secluded valley. It was a secluded place with few people around. It was a good place to cultivate. Without saying anything, the two of them sat down cross-legged and took out the Yuan ancient panacea to cultivate. They took out a jade bottle and opened it. Immediately, a medicinal fragrance filled the air. The Yuan ancient panacea was a middle LV4 elixir. It was very helpful to martial grandmasters and was priceless. Lu Ming poured out one of the Yuan ancient panacea and swallowed it. In an instant, the 9 dragons' bloodline released a strong devouring force, and the medicinal efficacy of the Yuan ancient panacea was continuously devoured and refined. Soon, the medicinal efficacy of the Yuan ancient panacea was completely refined. Lu Ming felt that his cultivation had increased by a level. The medicinal efficacy of the Yuan ancient panacea was at least 10 times that of a class 9 LV3 demonic pill. At this moment, Lu Ming opened his eyes and looked at Xian Yanqing. When they saw it, they sucked in a breath of cold air. They saw a huge black lotus floating above Xian Yanqing's head. This was obviously Xian Yanqing's bloodline. However, there were 9 blood-red chakras around the black lotus. It was very breathtaking. LV9 bloodline. Xian Yanqing's bloodline had actually reached LV9. It was really terrifying. One had to know that Xian Yanqing had not broken through to martial grandmaster and awakened her second bloodline. In other words, her first bloodline had reached LV9. This little she-devil's bloodline is terrifyingly high. No wonder her combat strength is so strong. She is a true genius. Lu Ming sighed inwardly. To be honest, this was the first time he had seen Xian Yanqing's bloodline. Her first bloodline has already reached LV9 ordinary LV9. I wonder what rank her second bloodline will be? Lu Ming could not help but look forward to it. Immediately after, Lu Ming continued to refine the Yuan ancient panacea. The surging energy was constantly converted into true qi, and Lu Ming's cultivation increased rapidly. Soon, the entire bottle of Yuan ancient panacea was refined and Lu Ming's cultivation was approaching the middle LV9 martial grandmaster. He continued to refine. Half a day later, Lu Ming had refined 12 bottles of pills in a row, raising his cultivation to the peak of the 9th level martial master realm. At this time, not far away, Xian Yanqing's body also emitted a strong fluctuation. Her cultivation had also reached the peak of the 9th level of the martial master realm. After reaching the peak of martial master realm, one could start consuming blood-refining pills and blood-refining crystals to condense the second bloodline and accumulate energy for the awakening of the second bloodline. This process was known as blood coagulation, which was also known as half-grandmaster. In the process of blood condensation, one's blood and qi would be exuberant, even stronger than the peak of the 9th layer of the martial master realm. A piece of blood-refining crystal appeared in Xian Yanqing's hand, and she swallowed it in one gulp. Immediately after, her spine emitted a dense bloody light. Lu Ming did not waste any time. He also took out a blood-refining crystal and swallowed it. As soon as the blood refinement crystal entered Zhang Xian's mouth, it turned into a surge of blood energy that was absorbed by his spine. It began to condense beneath his first bloodline. At that place, a blood-red dot began to appear. As the blood energy poured in, it slowly became brighter. In a few breaths, the blood energy of a blood-refining crystal was completely absorbed. Lu Ming took out several crystals at once and swallowed them in one gulp. The blood-red light at his spine grew bigger and brighter. Soon, the dozens of blood-refining crystals that Lu Ming had obtained here were all used up. Then he grabbed at the air and a handful of blood-refining pills appeared. He stuffed them all into his mouth. After a while, he grabbed another handful. At this time, he suddenly found someone in front of him and could not help but open his eyes. He saw a pair of bright eyes staring at him in surprise. It was Xian Yanqing. "Nest, what are you doing? Are you trying to scare me to death?" Lu Ming shouted. Xian Yanqing blinked her big eyes and asked, "Do you have blood-refining pills? How many do you have?" "I do have blood-refining pills. What does it have to do with you?" Lu Ming said. Can you give me some?" Xian Yanqing seemed to find it difficult to speak and stammered, "No, I'll give them to you so that you can break through and trample me under your feet in the future." Lu Ming firmly resisted. "Humph, do you think that I can't trample you under my feet if you don't give me blood-refining pills?" Xian Yanqing snorted coldly as he gritted his teeth, revealing a few sparkling white teeth. Then she turned her head and walked to the side. However, in less than a minute, she walked back and stared at Lu Ming with her big eyes. "What do you want now?" Lu Ming asked speechlessly. I'll buy blood-refining pills from you, okay? How many spirit crystals do you want? Name a price. Or I can exchange with treasures," Xian Yanqing said. "Oh, exchange with treasures? That's fine. How about this? I'll name a few treasures. If you have them, I'll exchange with you," Lu Ming said. "Okay, tell me," Xian Yanqing said. Xinyang Spirit, Shifang Bone. Lu Ming listed the names of 5 heavenly treasures in a row. These 5 heavenly treasures were all materials needed to cultivate the 5th level of the true dragon fighting technique. Unfortunately, Su Xie and Yanqing both shook their heads, indicating that they did not. "If you don't have them, how can you exchange?" "How about this? Give me some dragon essence and I'll exchange with you." Lu Ming curled his lips. "I don't have dragon essence, but I do have a flood dragon bone pearl. What do you think?" Xian Yanqing asked hopefully. "What? Flood dragon bone pearl? You really have it? Let me take a look," Lu Ming said eagerly. Xian Yanqing's palm glowed. The next moment, a fiery red bone pearl the size of a baby's fist appeared in Xian Yanqing's palm. "It's really a flood dragon bone pearl. And it's a flaming flood dragon bone pearl." Lu Ming was overjoyed. Cultivating the true battle dragon art did not necessarily require those few materials. There were also some substitutes. It was just that these substitutes were more precious. For example, the items of a true dragon were priceless treasures. Having one of them could help the true dragon fighting technique break through. Although a flood dragon was not a true dragon, it had the bloodline of a true dragon and was an extremely rare species. It also had some functions. Lu Ming was just casually mentioning it. He did not expect Xian Yanqing to really have such a treasure. "Let me see." Lu Ming took the flood dragon bone pearl and looked at it carefully. The flood dragon that produced this flood dragon bone pearl has a very high cultivation. As long as I have this flood dragon bone pearl and another material, the true dragon fighting technique will be able to break through to the 5th level. Lu Ming thought. How is it? Not bad, right? I'll exchange it with you for 2,000 blood refining pills. Xian Yanqing said. 2,000 pills? Dream on. You're asking for too much. Lu Ming was shocked and shouted. This is a flood dragon bone pearl. I paid a huge price to get it. 2,000 blood refining pills is not much. Xian Yanqing said. 500. Lu Ming said. What? That's too much. 1,500 no less. Xian Yanqing gritted his teeth. 800. I can't give you more. Lu Ming said with trembling lips. 1,200. 900. 1,000 blood refining pills no less. I won't trade if it's any less. Xian Yanqing said fiercely. All right. Deal. Chapter 280. He took out 1,000 blood refining elixirs and exchanged them with Xian Yanqing for the dragon bone pearl. Xian Yanqing happily ran to the side to refine the elixirs. Lu Ming observed the dragon bone pearl and was overjoyed. He put it away and continued to devour the blood refining elixirs. 2 days later, Lu Ming had refined all the remaining blood refining elixirs. Lu Ming's spine was filled with blood light. However, Lu Ming was not in a hurry to break through to Martial Grandmaster. He felt that it was not enough. He still needed to refine treasures like blood-refining elixirs and blood-refining crystals. At this moment, Xian Yanqing was sitting cross-legged. The blood light on his spine was denser than Lu Ming's, and there was a terrifying fluctuation. He had not refined as many blood-refining elixirs as Lu Ming, but his fluctuation was stronger than Lu Ming's. This was because of his talent. After a while, the blood light disappeared and the terrifying fluctuation was concealed. Xian Yanqing opened his eyes. Do you have any more blood-refining elixirs? This was the first question Xian Yanqing asked after he finished cultivating. Lu Ming spread his hands and said, No, I don't think it's enough. Then let's go kill them. The others must have a lot of blood-refining crystals. A cold light flashed in Xian Yanqing's eyes. That's what I want. Lu Ming smiled faintly. Then the two of them left the place. They chose a direction and ran wildly. 2 hours later, the two of them stopped at a barren mountain. They felt that their unawakened second bloodline was throbbing as if it was attracted by something. Over there. The two of them headed in that direction. 10 miles away there was a boundless stone forest. Stone pillars stood there. These stone pillars were carved into various shapes such as tigers, lions, wolves. Some were even carved into humans, real dragons, and so on. Whoosh! Whoosh! Many figures appeared in the surroundings and rushed towards the stone forest. Boom boom. In the stone forest, there were continuous rumbling sounds. Clearly there was a great battle going on. Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing looked at each other and rushed towards the stone forest. Die! On the side, a young man in the first martial arts grandmaster realm charged towards Lu Ming. His heart was pierced by Lu Ming's spear. The young man's eyes were wide open as he died, filled with disbelief. The current Lu Ming was infinitely close to a martial arts grandmaster and could be considered half a step away from being a martial arts grandmaster. He was much stronger than before. Lu Ming could kill an ordinary first martial arts grandmaster in one move. As soon as the young man died, his blood qi and blood essence condensed into blood-refining crystals. There were 16 of them in total, which Lu Ming took. At the same time, his true energy surged out and the young man's storage ring flew into Lu Ming's hands. Along the way, many people wanted to attack Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing, but they were mercilessly killed by the two of them. The combination of my wind force and fire force is powerful. However, it is only a combination and cannot be fully integrated. If the two forces can be fully integrated, the power will be even more shocking. But how can I fully integrate the two forces? If it works, then it will become one of my trump cards. Lu Ming pondered as he fought. Soon the two of them had covered a distance of 10 miles. The attraction to their bloodlines was even stronger. Soon a pit appeared in front of them. The pit was surrounded by various carvings. The two of them walked into the pit and took a look. Instantly their hair stood on end. In the pit there were piles of white bones. There were all kinds of living beings. Some were humanoid and some were demonic beasts. Between the white bones, there were blood-red crystals that emitted a blood-red glow. Blood-refining crystals, they were all blood-refining crystals. The blood-refining crystals were the ones that attracted their bloodlines. They were not left behind now, but from the ancient times. This place is a burial ground. It is also a place where ancient sacrifices are held. Xian Yanqing seemed to be talking to himself. His voice was trembling. Blood-refining crystals, they are all blood-refining crystals. These are all mine. Many figures appeared in the surroundings, their eyes blazing with fiery light as they looked down. Yours? You are courting death. You are the one who is going to die. Swoosh swoosh. A few figures jumped into the pit and started fighting in the air. At that moment, Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing jumped into the pit. Immediately, someone attacked them. Bam! Lu Ming used a human path palm print to smash the martial arts grandmaster realm first realm young expert into a meat patty. He was condensed into blood-refining crystals in the air. Xian Yanqing was also extremely powerful. A black lotus flew out and chopped off the head of a martial arts grandmaster realm first realm expert. As soon as the two of them landed, their genuine qi surged and swept across. The blood-refining crystals were collected by the two of them. In just a few breaths, Lu Ming had collected hundreds of blood-refining crystals. There were still many of them. Some of them were even buried in bones. Collect, collect. Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing collected the crystals to their heart's content. Damn it! When the others saw this, their eyes turned red. They stopped fighting and rushed down to fight for the blood-refining crystals. Buzz! At that moment, a saber radiance suddenly slashed down from above. Screams were heard as 5 to 6 young men were killed. Then, a young man with disheveled hair and a saber on his back appeared above the pit. Zhaohong, it is Zhaohong. Let's go. The rest of the people turned pale with fright. They quickly flew into the sky and tried to escape. However, in the next moment a saber radiance flashed and those people were all cut in half in the air. Die! Zhaohong casually glanced at Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing in the pit. Then he slashed down with his saber. The saber radiance was ghastly white and the killing intent was as cold as winter snow. It shrouded the two of them. Human path palm. Great demonic palm print. Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing shouted and joined forces to fight against the enemy. In the face of such a strong enemy, there was no need to hesitate. They could only join forces. Boom! With a loud boom, Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing retreated backward. Zhao Hong's eyes flickered and he was surprised. He said, I did not expect 2 martial grand masters to be able to block my saber. This is rare in the world. However, you will still die today. Boom! A strong aura exploded from Zhao Hong's body. A saber radiance shot up to the sky like a waterfall. Slash. Then, he slashed down with his saber. Retreat. Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing retreated without hesitation. Bang! Zhao Hong's saber slashed down on the thousands of bones in the pit. Immediately, the bones shattered and shot out in all directions. Blood-refining crystals flew into the sky and fell back down. Roar! At that moment, something strange happened. Under the thousands of bones in the pit, there was a shocking roar. A terrifying murderous aura surged out from the white bones. Bang! Then the white bones in the pit exploded, and a creature rushed out. This living creature was in the shape of a human. It was 3 meters tall and covered in green hair. Its nails were long and sharp and its mouth was full of fangs. Blood zombie. This living creature was exactly the same as the blood zombie that Lu Ming and the others had encountered in the blood demon cave. The only difference was that this blood zombie's eyes were golden. The aura it emitted was much stronger than the blood zombie in the blood demon cave. The demonic aura filled the air. Roar! Chapter 281. You're courting death. Zhao Hong shouted coldly and swung his saber at the golden-eyed blood zombie. Clang! The saber light clashed with the golden-eyed blood zombie's claw. Sparks flew everywhere. Bang! A figure flew far away. It was Zhao Hong. He was no match for the golden-eyed blood zombie and was sent flying by its claw. Roar! The golden-eyed blood zombie roared and continued to chase after Zhao Hong. Its speed was as fast as lightning. Zhao Hong's face was extremely ugly. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. He had been injured by the previous attack. Now that the golden-eyed blood zombie was charging at him, he didn't dare to continue fighting. He turned and ran in the direction of Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing. Oh no, run! Lu Ming's face changed. He and Xian Yanqing also turned and ran. You two still dare to run? Stop right now and help me stall this blood zombie. Dying at the hands of this blood zombie is a quick death. Once you fall into my hands, I'll make you beg for death. Zhao Hong shouted coldly. He was unusually domineering. Nest, one of the 50 supernovas of the Blood Zhao Empire? I think he's a complete idiot. Little Qing, what do you think? Lu Ming's disdainful voice came out of his mouth. Xian Yanqing staggered and almost fell. What did Lu Ming call her? Little Qing? Xian Yanqing's eyes flashed fiercely as she stared at Lu Ming. Little Qing, is that guy an idiot? Lu Ming pretended not to know and continued to ask. Yes. Xian Yanqing gritted her teeth and spat out a word after a long while. Lu Ming was obviously taking advantage of her. You're courting death. Zhao Hong roared. He was about to unleash his true qi and slash at Lu Ming, but his true qi slowed him down. The golden-eyed blood zombie caught up and clawed at him. Chila! Even though Zhao Hong escaped quickly, a piece of cloth was still caught. And this piece of cloth that was caught just happened to be at Zhao Hong's buttocks. Immediately, half of Zhao Hong's snow-white buttocks were revealed. Zhao Hong screamed and jumped forward as if he had been electrocuted. Only then did he avoid the danger of being torn apart. But in the next moment he felt a chill on his buttocks. When he turned his head to look, he roared, why is that fellow's running posture so strange? He keeps looking at his own butt. Is he sick? Lu Ming's sharp eyes noticed Zhao Hong's strange behavior and muttered. Zhao Hong's face was flushed red. His killing intent towards Lu Ming was so thick that it could not be dissipated. He chased after Lu Ming in a frenzy, while the golden-eyed blood zombie chased after him. Zhao Hong's speed was very fast. He would soon catch up with Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing. Ha ha, go to hell, kid. With a beauty accompanying you, you won't be lonely on the road to the Yellow Springs. Zhao Hong sneered. His true qi burst forth, increasing his speed to the maximum. He flew over Lu Ming's heads in an extremely arrogant manner. Behind him, the golden-eyed blood zombie roared. It stared at Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing with murderous intent. At this moment, Lu Ming suddenly felt the demon suppression token that Supreme Nine Suns had given him glowing faintly. Could it be that after the demon suppression token subdued the blood demon, it still has the energy to subdue this golden-eyed blood zombie? A thought flashed through Lu Ming's mind. Forget it, let's give it a try. Lu Ming suddenly stopped. The demon suppression token had unknowingly appeared in Lu Ming's hand. Lu Ming, why did you stop? Xian Yanqing turned pale with fright. However, Lu Ming only gave her a slight smile and did not explain. Damn it, Lu Ming, you can't die before I trample you under my feet. Xian Yanqing gritted her teeth and stopped as well. She stood beside Lu Ming. Ha ha ha, these two bastards are probably scared silly. Zhao Hong ran wildly. He only stopped when he was 10 miles away. He stood in the air and watched from afar. Roar! The golden-eyed blood zombie roared and was about to claw at Lu Ming. Stop! The demon suppression token in Lu Ming's hand glowed. An invisible wave surged toward the golden-eyed blood zombie. At the same time, Lu Ming shouted in his heart. It turned into an invisible wave and rushed into the golden-eyed blood zombie's body. All of this happened without a sound. Even Xian Yanqing didn't notice it. At this time, Xian Yanqing's body was already covered with black lotuses. Her genuine qi was running to the extreme, ready to fight to the death. However, the golden-eyed blood zombie suddenly stopped. It let out a low growl but did not continue to attack. It worked. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. Go back. Lu Ming gave another order in his heart. The next moment, the golden-eyed blood zombie let out a low growl. As expected, it turned around and ran back. Then it jumped into the pit and disappeared. Xian Yanqing was dumbfounded. Her eyes widened and she said in a daze, What's going on? Ha ha, little Qing, can't you see? I, Lu Ming, am blessed by the heavens. I'm blessed by the heavens. What golden-eyed blood zombie? It didn't run away obediently when it saw me. How would it dare to attack me? Lu Ming laughed wildly. He looked like a villain who was intoxicated with success and was extremely narcissistic. TSK. Xian Yanqing despised. She did not believe Lu Ming's nonsense at all. Then she gritted her teeth and said, Lu Ming, I'm warning you. Don't call me little Qing. Okay, little Qing. Lu Ming replied. You, Xian Yanqing ground her teeth. She could not wait to bite Lu Ming. In the distant sky, Zhao Hong was also dumbfounded. What's going on? Why didn't the golden-eyed blood zombie attack those two? Zhao Hong's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Could it be that the golden-eyed blood zombie won't attack as long as they admit defeat? Zhao Hong's imagination ran wild. However, he did not dare to step forward for a while. The golden-eyed blood zombie was too strong. If he fought it head-on, he would be killed in a few moves. In the stone forest, Lu Ming glanced at Zhao Hong in the distant sky and sneered. Then he said to Xian Yanqing, Let's go. There are still so many blood-refining crystals. Let's take them all. You're still going? Aren't you afraid of the golden-eyed blood zombie? Xian Yanqing hesitated. What's there to be afraid of? I've said that I'm blessed by God. The golden-eyed blood zombie will run away when it sees me. Don't worry. I'm here. Everything will be fine. Lu Ming was full of nonsense, feeling smug as he strode forward in big strides. Xian Yanqing gritted her teeth and followed Lu Ming. When they arrived at the pit, the golden-eyed blood zombie did not move at all. Lu Ming was not worried at all with a smile on his face. He jumped into the pit and began to collect the blood-refining crystals. Seeing this, Xian Yanqing was also relieved. For some reason, he suddenly believed Lu Ming's words a little. Bah, how is that possible? This guy is full of nonsense. Xian Yanqing shook her head secretly and began to collect the blood-refining crystals vigorously. It's okay. It's really okay. In the distance, Zhao Hong saw this scene. His mouth opened so wide that a goose egg could be stuffed in it. Should I kill those two and take the blood-refining crystals? No, I'm a genius. My future is limitless. How can I take risks so easily? When those two guys finish collecting the blood-refining crystals and come out, I'll kill them. The blood-refining crystals will still be mine. Zhao Hong planned. He was not in a hurry and waited in the air. Collect, collect, collect. Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing were extremely excited. Chapter 282. What should we do? That guy is waiting for us outside. No matter which direction we go, he will probably chase after us. Xian Yanqing looked at the sky and frowned. Why do we have to go out? Can't we just cultivate here? Lu Ming smiled faintly, jumped into the pit, and sat cross-legged beside it. Cultivate here? Xian Yanqing was in disbelief. Trust me. Lu Ming transmitted his voice into Xian Yanqing's ears. Xian Yanqing was skeptical, but on second thought, Lu Ming had never been taken advantage of. Maybe he really had a way. Gritting his teeth, Xian Yanqing threw caution to the wind. He also sat cross-legged, took out a handful of blood-refining crystals, swallowed them and began to refine them. Lu Ming laughed and deliberately looked at the sky. He also took out a handful of blood-refining crystals, swallowed them and began to refine them. In the sky, Zhao Hong was dumbfounded. They are refining blood-refining crystals here? Damn it, damn it. Zhao Hong roared in his heart, and killing intent burst out from his eyes. In his opinion, all the blood-refining crystals here belonged to him. Now Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing were refining his blood-refining crystals, which was a heinous crime. But he still hesitated and did not go over. Soon Lu Ming refined a handful of blood-refining crystals, and took out another handful to refine. One after another, Lu Ming refined hundreds of blood-refining crystals in a short time, and Xian Yanqing was almost the same. The golden-eyed blood zombie has not appeared yet. Should be fine. Smash it, die. Zhao Hong roared and flew toward Lu Ming. After a while, he was close to Lu Ming. Finally here? Lu Ming's lips curled into a cold smile. He ignored everything and continued to cultivate. Xian Yanqing was shocked and stood up to resist. Die, you little bastard. Zhao Hong roared as he unsheathed his saber, about to slash down. Roar. Suddenly, a loud roar came from the crater. The golden-eyed blood zombie rushed out and charged at Zhao Hong. Bang! Caught off guard, Zhao Hong was swept by the golden-eyed blood zombie's claws. He spat out a mouthful of blood and was sent flying far away. Roar! The golden-eyed blood zombie charged towards Zhao Hong. What's going on? How could this be? Those two bastards have been here for so long. Not only have they been collecting blood-refining crystals, but they have also been refining them. The golden-eyed blood zombie hasn't rushed out yet. Why did it rush out when I arrived? I can't accept this. Zhao Hong roared in his heart. But how could he dare to stay? He turned around and ran. The golden-eyed blood zombie clawed at Zhao Hong, tearing a large hole in his pants, revealing his snow-white buttocks, which writhed madly in the air. Hey! Your buttocks are showing again. Haha, eh? Why would I say again? Lu Ming laughed loudly. Xian Yanqing's face reddened. He snorted coldly and turned around. Ah! Zhao Hong roared at the sky. His hair danced wildly, and his aura was astonishing. But what greeted him was the golden-eyed blood zombie's claw. Whoosh! The claw swept past, leaving 5 wounds on Zhao Hong's body. It was as if he had been cut by a blade, dripping with blood. Zhao Hong spat out a mouthful of blood. He had already been injured, and his speed had decreased. He could no longer escape from the golden-eyed blood zombie. If I die, let's die together. Zhao Hong roared and charged towards Lu Ming. Lu Ming stood up and looked at him with a faint smile. What happened next made Zhao Hong vomit blood. When the golden-eyed blood zombie passed by Lu Ming, it didn't even look at Lu Ming and continued to chase after him. Why? Zhao Hong roared, unwilling and puzzled. But it was useless. Soon the golden-eyed blood zombie caught up. Despite his peerless talent and desperate resistance, he was still torn in half by the golden-eyed blood zombie after a few moves. Zhao Hong, one of the Blood Zhao Empire's 50 supernovas, a genius on the same level as the 6 heroes of the Burning Sun Empire, died unwillingly, puzzled and humiliated. His blood and essence had all been converted into blood-refining crystals. 81 crystals. Zhao Hong had refined a total of 81 blood-refining crystals. His second bloodline was a first-rank king bloodline. Lu Ming took all of them, including Zhao Hong's blood-refining crystals. Roar! The golden-eyed blood zombie growled and appeared beside Lu Ming, standing there obediently. Xian Yanqing was dumbfounded. She stared for a while, then suddenly remembered that the incomparably powerful blood demon was also obedient in front of Lu Ming. Lu Ming, do you have a way to subdue demons? Xian Yanqing asked. Didn't I tell you? I'm the chosen one blessed by the heavens. These demons will be shocked when they see me and will naturally be obedient. Lu Ming looked proud. He looked at Xian Yanqing carefully and said, How about it? Are you tempted? Why don't you be my bed-warming maid? You'll get endless benefits if you follow me. Lu Ming had a smug expression on his face. Bed-warming your head, humph. I guess you must have some kind of treasure that can subdue demons. Don't pretend in front of me. One day, I'll trample you under my feet. Xian Yanqing snorted. She twisted her arrogant neck and went to one side to refine the blood-refining crystals. Lu Ming smiled and ordered the golden-eyed blood zombie to guard at one side. Then he took out Zhao Hong's storage ring. Ignoring the rest for the time being, Lu Ming took out all the blood refinement crystals inside. More than 500. There were more than 500 blood-refining crystals in Zhao Hong's storage ring. This meant that at least a few hundred young experts had died in Zhao Hong's hands. This time, all of them benefited Lu Ming. Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing refined the blood-refining crystals with all their strength. During this time, other young people came here, but they were all scared away by the golden-eyed blood zombie. In the blink of an eye, another 2 days passed. Lu Ming refined more than 3,000 blood-refining crystals. In total, Lu Ming had refined more than 6,000 blood-refining pills and blood-refining crystals. At this time, the blood light at Lu Ming's spine was extremely dense. The blood qi was so substantial that it looked like it was going to turn into blood droplets. It's done. I'll break through the martial arts grandmaster realm and awaken the second bloodline. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. He waved his hand and hundreds of thousands of spiritual crystals appeared beside him. Then he activated the true dragon fighting skill. The qi vortex in his dantian rotated rapidly. The dragon-shaped genuine qi in his body was surging. At his spine the blood qi exploded. At this moment Lu Ming's essence, qi and spirit were condensed to the extreme. Boom! Suddenly Lu Ming's body let out an earth-shattering roar. A surge of essence qi rose and rushed into the sky. Countless young experts within a radius of dozens of miles looked over. Soaring qi. Someone has broken through to the martial arts grandmaster realm. What a terrifying aura. This power is too shocking. What kind of genius is he? When I broke through to the martial arts grandmaster realm, my essence qi was less than 1/5 of his. Terrifying. Many people were discussing. Some people even rushed over. However, with the golden-eyed blood zombie around, they could not set foot in. Some people even tried to force their way in but were killed by the golden-eyed blood zombie. The rest did not dare to force their way in. It took a while for the pillar of essence qi to vanish. Swallow. At this time Lu Ming's 9 dragons bloodline appeared. He opened his mouth and inhaled. Large amounts of spiritual crystals around him exploded and were swallowed by the 9 dragons bloodline. They were constantly converted into Lu Ming's genuine qi. Chapter 283. Soon, at least 200,000 spiritual crystals were absorbed by Lu Ming and turned into genuine qi. Lu Ming felt that the genuine qi in his body was 10 times stronger than before. The martial arts grandmaster realm was really powerful. Lu Ming had broken through to LV1 martial arts grandmaster realm. Bloodline awaken. At this moment Lu Ming's spine shook and a thick blood light spread out. At his spine, a blood-red light was extremely dense as if something was about to break out of his body. Awaken! Lu Ming growled again. Bang! At his spine a bloody light exploded. Then an object condensed. It was a stone tablet. This stone tablet was 10 meters tall, and it floated above Lu Ming's head. There seemed to be words on the tablet, but they were hazy and unclear. This is my second bloodline? It's actually a stone tablet? Is it a special bloodline? Lu Ming thought to himself. Buzz! The stone tablet shook and then a silver chakra appeared. A silver chakra represented a king bloodline. A silver chakra represented a level 1 king bloodline. But it was not over yet. The stone tablet shook again and a second silver chakra appeared. Then a third silver chakra appeared. After the third silver chakra appeared, there were no more chakras. Level 3 king bloodline. This was the final level of the second bloodline that Lu Ming had awakened. 3 silver chakras were shining and extremely dazzling. I've swallowed more than 6,000 blood refining pills and blood refining crystals. The bloodline awakened didn't disappoint me. Lu Ming revealed a faint smile. He was quite satisfied. With his talent, if he hadn't swallowed more than 6,000 blood refining pills and blood refining crystals, he could only awaken a level 9 ordinary bloodline. It would be impossible for him to reach the king bloodline. Whoosh! The second bloodline vibrated and emitted a strong attractive force. The essence of the world was absorbed by Lu Ming and turned into genuine qi. This was the king bloodline. It was extremely magical. When it was awakened, there would be a chance to crazily devour the essence of the world. After that, it would slowly calm down. I can't waste this opportunity. Lu Ming waved his hands and more than 200,000 spirit crystals appeared around him. These spiritual crystals were obtained from killing other young experts. Bang! 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 The spirit crystals exploded one after another, turning into surging energy that was constantly absorbed and refined by Lu Ming. Lu Ming's cultivation soared like a rocket. Early stage of martial ancestor realm 1. However, not long after, Lu Ming's cultivation had broken through to the middle stage of martial ancestor realm 1. However, this was not the limit and it was still increasing. An hour later, Lu Ming's cultivation had broken through to the peak of martial arts grandmaster LV1. He was only a step away from martial arts grandmaster LV2. Only then did the second bloodline calm down and stop absorbing the spiritual qi of heaven and earth. Whoosh! Lu Ming took a deep breath. His eyes flickered and shot out like 2 long spears. Feeling the almost endless true qi in his body, Lu Ming smiled. However, in terms of Zhen qi, he was much stronger than before. With a thought, the second bloodline went into hiding. Humph, it's only a level 3 king-class bloodline. What's there to be proud of? Watch me. Xian Yanqing, who had been observing Lu Ming's breakthrough, snorted and sat down cross-legged. He continued to refine the blood-refining crystals. Lu Ming smiled and did not mind. He moved his hand and took out a jade bottle. It was the Yuan Ancient Panacea. He still had dozens of bottles with him. He planned to use the Yuan Ancient Panacea to raise his cultivation to Martial Ancestor Realm 2. He opened the jade bottle and the 9 dragons bloodline appeared. He opened his mouth and sucked in all 9 Yuan Ancient Panacea. The energy required to break through to Martial Ancestor Realm was terrifying. Even if there were too few Yuan Ancient Panacea, it would not be of much use. Lu Ming decided to swallow the entire bottle. As Lu Ming refined the Ancient Panacea, he diverted a portion of his attention to observe Xian Yanqing. An hour later, Xian Yanqing stopped refining the blood-refining crystals and started to break through. With Xian Yanqing's talent, it was not a problem for her to break through to Martial Ancestor Realm. Soon, she successfully broke through and a terrifying essence qi shot up into the sky. This essence qi was comparable to Lu Ming's and it caused a stir. The people nearby were shocked. 2 consecutive essence qi shot up into the sky and each of them was terrifying. Could there be 2 demon-like geniuses breaking through? The crowd was curious. Boom! After Xian Yanqing's cultivation broke through, she started to awaken her second bloodline. Blood light shot up into the sky and it was extremely dense. It almost covered a radius of a few miles. Lu Ming was dumbfounded. The blood qi was too shocking. It was 10 times more powerful than what he had done previously. No, it was more than that. Whoosh whoosh. Blood qi swept out, surging unsteadily, and a shocking pressure spread out. After a while, the blood light dissipated and a figure appeared above Xian Yanqing's head. Yes, that's right. Xian Yanqing's second bloodline was a woman. She was more than 10 meters tall and had a curvaceous figure. She was wearing a black veil and sitting cross-legged on a black lotus. The woman's appearance was unclear, but her figure was extremely good. She exuded a seductive aura and she was like a demoness. The most terrifying and shocking thing for Lu Ming was that there were 7 silver chakras on the woman's body. Level 7 king-class bloodline. Lu Ming's eyes almost popped out and he was dumbfounded. He was too shocked. It was extremely difficult to awaken a king-class bloodline. Duanmu Lin, who was known as the once-in-a-thousand-years genius of the Duanmu family, and would surpass Feng Wuji in the future, had only awakened a level 2 king-class bloodline. Usually geniuses like the 6 heroes of the Burning Sun tribe would only awaken a level 1 king-class bloodline. Some might even awaken a level 1 king-class bloodline. This showed how terrifying a level 7 king-class bloodline was. Genius, this was a real genius. Xian Yanqing didn't refine as many blood-refining pills and blood-refining crystals as Lu Ming, but the bloodline he awakened was much stronger than Lu Ming's. This was a real monster. Even if Xian Yanqing didn't refine the blood-refining crystals, he could still awaken a level 5 king-class bloodline. At this time, Xian Yanqing opened his eyes and shouted, "Swallow!" Whoosh whoosh. The spiritual qi of heaven and earth rushed toward Xian Yanqing crazily. The spiritual qi within dozens of miles was drawn, and there seemed to be a gust of wind in the air. What's going on? I can't absorb the spiritual qi of heaven and earth. The spiritual qi of heaven and earth is controlled by someone. Exclamations were heard from dozens of miles away. At the same time, Xian Yanqing waved his hand and piles of spiritual crystals appeared. There were hundreds of thousands of them. They all exploded and turned into a sea of spiritual qi, pouring into Xian Yanqing. Xian Yanqing's cultivation rose rapidly. Early level 1 martial arts grandmaster realm, middle level 1 martial arts grandmaster realm soon. He reached the peak of level 1 martial arts grandmaster realm, but he didn't stop there. With a boom, he broke through the bottleneck and reached level 2 martial arts grandmaster realm. He continued to rise until he reached the peak of level 2 martial arts grandmaster realm. Xian Yanqing's cultivation didn't stop rising. This is too terrifying. Lu Ming was dumbfounded. When he broke through, he made use of his newly awakened bloodline to reach the peak of level 1 martial arts grandmaster realm. It was extremely rare and was equivalent to years of hard work for ordinary people. However, Xian Yanqing was even more terrifying. He directly reached the peak of level 2 martial arts grandmaster realm. This was a level 7 king-class bloodline. Chapter 284. At that moment, Xian Yanqing stood up and looked at Lu Ming proudly. What do you think? A mere level 3 king bloodline? What's the big deal? Now take my blow. Xian Yanqing shouted and struck with her palm. A black palm print was formed and its power was extremely terrifying. Human Dao palm. Lu Ming also struck with his palm. Genuine qi surged and formed a huge palm print. It collided with Xian Yanqing's black palm print. There was a loud explosion. Both of them trembled and took a step back. You've broken through to martial ancestor realm 2nd level? Xian Yanqing exclaimed. Of course. Lu Ming laughed. Before Xian Yanqing had broken through, he had swallowed 20 bottles of Yuan ancient panaceas and broken through to martial ancestor realm 2nd level. His cultivation was now at the early stage of martial ancestor realm 2nd level. Don't think that I can't step on you just because you've broken through to martial ancestor realm 2nd level. Xian Yanqing shouted and a bloody light surged on her body. She was about to unleash her bloodline. Roar! With a loud roar, the golden-eyed blood zombie appeared beside Xian Yanqing and stared at her with its fangs wide open. Xian Yanqing screamed and hurriedly retreated. Lu Ming, you're shameless. So what if I'm shameless? You've been saying that you're going to step on me. Today I'll do it. Attack! Lu Ming sneered coldly. With a light shout, he pounced on Xian Yanqing at high speed. At the same time, the golden-eyed blood zombie roared and pounced on Xian Yanqing. Xian Yanqing was shocked. A bloody light flashed on her body and she was about to unleash her bloodline. However, the golden-eyed blood zombie pounced on her and roared. A bloody light rushed towards Xian Yanqing and interrupted her bloodline. At the same time, Lu Ming pounced on Xian Yanqing and struck out with his palm. A palm force entered Xian Yanqing's dantian and temporarily sealed her true qi. Then Lu Ming took advantage of the situation to pull Xian Yanqing into his arms and threw her onto the ground. Lu Ming's body was pressed tightly against Xian Yanqing's. "Get out of my way!" Xian Yanqing screamed and struggled with all his might. "What are you shouting for?" As soon as Lu Ming exerted his strength, Xian Yanqing's zhanqi was temporarily sealed. How could he still resist? He was tightly pressed down by Lu Ming, unable to move at all. "Lu Ming, let go of me or I won't let you go," Xian Yanqing shouted. Now that you've completely fallen into my hands, you still dare to threaten me. Seems that I was too honest before. Spanking your butt." Lu Ming let out a lascivious laugh and slapped down. This slap directly hit Xian Yanqing's plump and perky buttocks. "Pa!" A very loud sound rang out. Xian Yanqing's body suddenly trembled as if she had been electrocuted. Her whole body stiffened, and a pair of beautiful big eyes stared blankly at Lu Ming. But Lu Ming didn't have the slightest intention of stopping. With a beauty in his arms, it would be a lie to say that he didn't have any reaction. Lu Ming couldn't help but reach out a hand and wander around Xian Yanqing's body. Lu Ming, I hate you. Do it, I must trample you under my feet." Xian Yanqing's whole body went soft, and waves of inexplicable feelings rippled in her heart. She gritted her teeth and cursed in a low voice, looking as if she was at his mercy. However, as she cursed and scolded, tears streamed down her face. At this time, Lu Ming was really at a loss. He hurriedly let go of Xian Yanqing and said, "Hey, what are you crying for? I haven't done anything yet." But Xian Yanqing's crying was like a river that had opened the floodgates. Couldn't be stopped at all. She cried so sadly and pitifully. Her tears streamed down like strings, dripping to the ground like pearls. It was as if there was a great grievance that she wanted to vent through this crying. Lu Ming was tongue-tied. He felt as if he had done something wrong, but he hadn't done anything yet. So, he could only accompany her on the side. After a long while, Xian Yanqing stopped crying. She stared blankly at Lu Ming for a long time, then suddenly gritted her teeth and said, "Humph, Lu Ming, I'll let you off for now. One day, I'll trample you under my feet." This again. Lu Ming was completely speechless. "I'm leaving. Are you coming or not?" Lu Ming asked. "Humph, of course I'm coming. Don't even think about escaping." Xian Yanqing snorted coldly and followed Lu Ming closely. Lu Ming's lips curled into a smile. The two of them left the stone forest. Of course, the golden-eyed blood zombie was also with them. But Lu Ming took out a very large black robe and a bamboo hat for the golden-eyed blood zombie to wear. Otherwise, it would be too conspicuous. The two of them chose a direction at random and walked forward. On the way, they met a few martial artists who didn't know what to do, but Lu Ming casually dealt with them. 2 hours later. Dong! Suddenly, a bell rang from afar, echoing between heaven and earth. It was unknown how far the bell came from, but it sounded like it was ringing in their ears. What a strange bell. What does it mean? Lu Ming was curious. Xian Yanqing shook her head and didn't say anything. "Let's go and take a look," Lu Ming said. After saying that, his genuine qi surged. Lu Ming soared into the sky and flew in the direction of the bell. After entering the martial arts grandmaster realm, he could finally fly as he pleased. Xian Yanqing and the golden-eyed blood zombie moved and followed Lu Ming. Dong! After a while, the second bell rang. It sounded similar to the previous bell, but Lu Ming and the rest were clearly closer to the location of the bell. Lu Ming and the rest continued to fly in the direction of the bell. After a while, the third bell rang. It sounded the same as the previous two bells, as if it was ringing in their ears. Swoosh! Swoosh! From time to time, the sound of something breaking through the air could be heard. Not only Lu Ming and the rest, But the others also heard the bell and headed in the direction of the bell. Not long after, the fourth bell rang. At this moment, Lu Ming and the rest saw a huge mountain. This mountain towered into the clouds and was incomparably majestic. And the sound of the bell came from the top of this mountain. When they arrived at the foot of the mountain, they found that the mountain was blocked by a light screen and couldn't be entered. At this moment, hundreds of young powerhouses had gathered at the foot of the mountain. Swoosh! A sword ray flashed and a young man in a swordsman's robe stopped in the air. Everyone was shocked. Someone recognized him as Duan Ling of the 9 heroes of Inue. After that, experts appeared from time to time. In addition to Duan Ling, 2 of the 50 supernovas of the Bloodjiao Empire also appeared. Dong! Dong! The sound of the bell was long and drawn out. Every few moments it would ring once. When the 8th bell rang, a young man with a demonic aura walked in the air with his hands behind his back. Yang Liuji is here. Someone exclaimed. Even geniuses like the Bloodjiao 50 supernovas had grave expressions on their faces. The geniuses on the Emperor leaderboard were too strong. At this moment, more than 1,000 people had gathered at the foot of the mountain. Dong! After a while, the 9th bell rang. Chapter 285. There were 8 paths that led straight to the top of the mountain. On every path, there was a cluster of glittering objects that emitted a precious light at regular intervals. That's a treasure. That's right. Those who can stay here must be extraordinary. Many people's eyes lit up. Look, there's a stone tablet with words on it. Someone shouted. At the intersection of each path there was a platform. In front of the platform there was a stone tablet. Everyone went up to take a look. Then their eyes lit up. The meaning of the stone tablet was obvious. It said that these were the paths that Yun Imperial Palace had set up for the disciples. Each path was set up with an inscription formation. Each path could only be taken by 1 person. 8 paths could only be taken by 8 people. On the path there would be some treasure rewards. Everyone's eyes lit up. This path is mine, Yi Futian said. It's mine. Immediately, more than 10 people rushed to the platform of the first path. Boom! But then a blazing fist force blasted towards the platform like the sun. More than 10 young experts did not even have time to scream before they were directly blasted into ashes. A young man stepped up and looked around. It was Yang Luji. Most people's faces changed. It was obvious that Yang Luji had stepped onto the first path. This path was already his. The second path. Someone rushed to the second path. Whoosh! An iron rod swept across. More than 10 young people screamed as they were swept off the platform. A young man with messy hair held an iron rod in his hand and walked to the second platform. One of the 50 supernovas of Bloodjiao, Blood Rod Iron Demon. Someone exclaimed. Many people's eyes lit up. They wanted to rush up, but the Iron Demon was extremely powerful. His iron rod could sweep away thousands of people. Whoosh! A sword light appeared on the platform of the third path like a flying immortal. It was one of the 9 heroes of Inue, Duan Ling Boom. A powerhouse also appeared on the 6th path. He was one of the 50 supernovas of Bloodjiao. The first path, the second path, the third path, the 6th path, and so on were all occupied by the cultivators. The 4 of them stood on the platforms. Others looked at them and retreated. No one wanted to court death. The competition for the remaining 4 paths was intense. Groups of people rushed up and fought with all their might. People kept falling. Of course, this was the battlefield of the martial ancestor realm. Those martial grandmasters could not interfere at all. I want one. Xian Yanqing muttered. Then he dashed toward the 5th path. Great demonic palm. It was unknown what level Xian Yanqing's heavenly demon great palm was. As her cultivation increased, its might became more and more terrifying. Ah! Ah! Following a series of blood-curdling screams, 7 or 8 martial ancestor realm experts were sent flying by Xian Yanqing. Some of them even exploded in the air. So strong. Who is this person? Someone was shocked. Scram if you don't want to die. Xian Yanqing coldly shouted, incomparably domineering. Some people refused to believe this and wanted to rush forward. However, they were all killed by Xian Yanqing in one move. The remaining people had no choice but to switch to another route. Then I'll have one too. Lu Ming dashed toward the 8th path with the golden-eyed blood zombie following closely behind. Go to hell. A powerful blade radiance slashed toward Lu Ming's head. It was a peak martial ancestor realm 1 martial artist. You're the one who's going to die. The demon banishing spear appeared in his hand and he swept it out. Bang! The young man's body flew out like a cannonball. No one knew how far he flew before he disappeared without a trace. Brat, it's you. Suddenly a cold shout rang out near Lu Ming. Lu Ming looked around and was amused. Isn't this the young man in the brocade robe who snatched the Yuan ancient panacea? The young man in the brocade robe looked around Lu Ming. Then a cold light flashed across his eyes as he sneered, Brat, now that you're here alone, let's see how you're going to die. Is that so? I'm afraid you're still far from it. Lu Ming smiled faintly. Brat, it's useless to be stubborn. Go to hell. The young man in the brocade robe shouted as his body emitted a violent aura. Rank 3 Martial Ancestor Realm. The young man in the brocade robe had reached rank 3 Martial Ancestor Realm. A while ago, his cultivation was still at peak Martial Ancestor Realm 2 Martial Ancestor Realm. It seemed that the young man in the brocade robe had a fortuitous encounter over the past few days that allowed him to have a breakthrough in his cultivation. Die! The purple light on the young man in the brocade robe turned golden in the blink of an eye. He threw out a punch and a golden dragon flew out and pounced toward Lu Ming. Lu Ming did not even look at it as he pulled out his spear. Bang! The golden dragon was like a piece of tofu as it was smashed into pieces by Lu Ming's spear. The violent spear radiance continued to sweep toward the young man in the brocade robe. How could this be? The young man in the brocade robe shouted in disbelief. His cultivation had broken through to rank 3 Martial Ancestor Realm, and Lu Ming was alone. He had thought that killing Lu Ming would be a piece of cake. However, he had never expected that his most prized martial skill would be shattered by Lu Ming's spear. At that moment, he shouted and unleashed his full strength in an attempt to defend himself. Bang! The berserk spear aura whipped his body, shattering all of his defenses. His body emitted a series of crackling sounds, and it was unknown how many bones in his body were broken. He fell off the platform like a pile of minced meat. He was already dead to the point that he couldn't be more dead. Lu Ming reached out and sucked the storage ring of the young man in the brocade robe into his hand. He then charged toward the others. Bang! Bang! Lu Ming's attack was direct and overbearing. He formed a huge spear radiance with his long spear and swept away the entire army. Bang! Bang! Those young men were like broken sacks as they were swept away by Lu Ming. Those with weaker cultivations had their bodies explode. In an instant, Lu Ming was the only one left on the platform at the intersection of the 8th path. He held his spear and stood proudly. Who is he? He's too strong. Many people looked at Lu Ming in shock and did not dare to step forward. Just like that, the 5th and 8th paths were occupied by Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing respectively. Only the 4th and 7th paths were left. The competition was extremely fierce. The killing continued and blood flowed like a river. In the sky, inscriptions appeared and blood-refining crystals were condensed. Moments later, the 4th path and the 7th path had their respective owners. The owner of the 4th path was a bald young man. He was at the peak of martial arts Grandmaster Realm LV3, and was extremely powerful. Of course, he was still weaker than the geniuses of the 6 Burning Sun heroes. The 7th path was occupied by a short and fat young man. His cultivation was also at the peak of martial arts Grandmaster Realm LV3. No one dared to challenge the 8 paths. Charge! Then the people on the 8 platforms all rushed toward that path. Lu Ming also rushed toward the path and the golden-eyed blood zombie followed closely behind. The golden-eyed blood zombie was not a human, so it could go with Lu Ming. Not long after they rushed out, there was a flash of light and 4 tiger-shaped demonic beasts suddenly appeared and blocked the path. Obviously, the 4 demonic beasts were condensed by the inscription array, and were not real. The 4 demonic beasts are at the early stage of martial arts Grandmaster Realm LV3. Lu Ming saw the strength of the 4 demonic beasts at a glance. Roar! Roar! Chapter 286. Swoosh. Swoosh. Lu Ming shook his long spear and shot out 4 spear radiances. Poof. Poof. The 4 demonic beasts were pierced by the spear radiances and turned into energy. With Lu Ming's current cultivation, ordinary third-stage martial ancestor realm martial artists were no match for him. He could easily kill them in one move. After the 4 demonic beasts were killed, Lu Ming walked a dozen meters forward. There was a ball of light with a manual floating in it. With a breath, the manual naturally fell into Lu Ming's hands. 10 Wave Sword Art, a low-grade earth-level martial skill. Flipping it open, Lu Ming was slightly disappointed. Lu Ming had no use for this sword art. Lu Ming's current earth-level martial skills were the Ancient Shield Art and the 3 Palms. These 2 martial skills were extremely ancient and were definitely the best among the low-grade earth-level martial skills. There was also the 9 Dragons Heaven Trampling Steps that he had yet to cultivate. It could be said that Lu Ming did not lack other martial skills for the time being. What he wanted was a spear art. He was still using the low-grade black-level martial skill, the Fire Gang Spear Art. It was already insufficient. However, it was an earth-level martial skill after all. If he could not use it, he could sell it for a shocking price. Some of the top geniuses of the large sects did not lack earth-level martial skills. However, many small sects and even martial ancestor realm martial artists among the rogue cultivators did not have an earth-level martial skill. They would be willing to go bankrupt for an earth-level martial skill. Therefore, an earth-level martial skill would be worth at least 1 million spirit crystals. Lu Ming kept the manual and continued to move forward. After walking for more than 100 meters, there was a flash of light and more demonic beasts appeared. This time there were 8 demonic beasts in the early stage of the 3rd stage martial ancestor realm. They did not hinder Lu Ming at all. Swoosh. Swoosh. 8 spear radiances pierced out and killed the 8 demonic beasts. There was another ball of light in front. This time there was a spiritual weapon in the ball of light. It was a high-grade LV4 spiritual weapon. Lu Ming sighed. Why was it all about swords? But in any case, it was still a high-grade level 4 spirit weapon, and its price was not lower than the 10 Wave Sword Art in the slightest. Lu Ming naturally put it away. Then it continued to move upwards. But in the next moment, he was slightly stunned because he saw a short and fat figure. It was the short and fat young man from the 7th path. At this moment, Lu Ming discovered that the 8th route was actually going to converge with the 7th route to form one route. It was the same for the other routes. The 1st and 2nd routes converged. The 3rd and 4th lines converged, and the 5th and 6th lines converged. The 2 people on the 2 roads were about to meet each other. In the end, there were only 4 paths left. Obviously, the short and fat youth also saw Lu Ming. Fear flashed in his eyes. His figure flashed and he wanted to rush up quickly. However, at the point where the 2 paths converged, light flickered, and demonic beasts began to form. There were a total of 16 demonic beasts, and each demonic beast's aura was stronger than the previous one. The 16 demonic beasts were all at the peak of the 3rd level of the martial ancestor realm. Once the 16 demonic beasts appeared, they pounced towards the short and fat youth. In an instant, the short and fat youth was in a tough battle. Lu Ming dashed over at lightning speed and shot out beams of spear gleams. The demonic beasts at the peak of the 3rd level of the martial ancestor realm were unable to resist and were killed by Lu Ming one by one. In a short while, there were only a few demonic beasts left. Do you want me to do it myself? Lu Ming looked coldly at the short and fat youth. The short and fat youth's face was extremely ugly. Although he was a genius and his cultivation was at the peak of the 3rd level of the martial ancestor realm, his combat strength was comparable to that of an ordinary 4th level martial ancestor realm warrior. However, it was obvious that Lu Ming was stronger. He was not someone an ordinary 4th level martial ancestor realm warrior could compare to. Although the short and fat youth was unwilling, he finally gritted his teeth and turned to leave. After all, no matter how precious the treasure was, it would be useless if he lost his life. Lu Ming waved his spear and killed the remaining demonic beasts. Then he walked towards the 3rd ball of light. This time the ball of light contained a martial skill. Lu Ming picked it up and took a look. Earth rank high-grade martial skill, 100 steps divine fist. Lu Ming was delighted. This time it was actually a earth rank high-grade martial skill. It was really shocking. One had to know that a sect like the Mystic Essence Sword sect only had a Earth-rank high-grade martial skill. The price was terrifyingly high. Lu Ming excitedly put it away. Then he swept his gaze across the other paths. The youth in the second path was the most unlucky. As the 50th supernova of the Bloodjiao Empire, he encountered Yang Liuji. There was no need to fight as he took the initiative to withdraw. If he fought with Yang Liuji, he would definitely die. Duan Ling easily killed his opponents in the third and fourth paths. The battle in the fifth and sixth paths was the most intense. It caused the others to stop in their tracks. Xian Yanqing and the 50th supernova of the Bloodjiao Empire had an intense battle. Xian Yanqing displayed a terrifying combat strength. The 7th level king rank bloodline was too powerful. The battle was extremely intense. This was a battle between the 6 blazing sun heroes. After 100 moves, Xian Yanqing finally waved his hand. A huge, beautiful woman's arm appeared out of thin air and slapped his opponent away. The opponent spat out a large mouthful of blood. Xian Yanqing won this battle. This girl has such a strong combat strength. If she goes all out, I might not be able to defeat her. Looks like after I get out of here, I have to cultivate the 9 dragons' heaven stomping steps as soon as possible. Also, I have to break through to the 5th level of the true dragon battle technique as soon as possible. Otherwise, compared to the other geniuses, my advantage will become less and less obvious. Lu Ming thought to himself. Then he continued to rush up. After a while, more demonic beasts were formed. This time there were only 4 of them. However, the aura of each of them was much stronger than the previous beasts. The early 4th level of the martial ancestor realm. The 4 beasts were all at the early 4th level of the martial ancestor realm. The 4 beasts roared and pounced toward Lu Ming. Lu Ming fought with his spear. 4th level martial ancestor realm beasts were not something that could be killed instantly with a single spear. This gave Lu Ming a great pressure. Lu Ming did not execute the human Dao Palm. He only fought with his spear and the force of wind and fire. He wanted to use the battle to comprehend the fusion of the force of wind and fire. Bang! A beast was knocked flying by Lu Ming's spear. However, it did not dissipate. Instead, it roared and charged forward once again. Following this, the beasts charged forward one after another, but were knocked flying by Lu Ming's attacks. Lu Ming gradually became more familiar with the use of the force of wind and fire. However, he still had a long way to go before he could fully merge the 2 forces. After more than 100 moves, the 4 demonic beasts suddenly exploded and dissipated into nothingness. Lu Ming was startled. It seemed like the beasts had run out of energy after the continuous attacks, causing them to dissipate on their own. Lu Ming let out a smile. He took a step forward and a 4th glowing ball appeared. There was a jade box in it. Lu Ming put it away and opened it. He was overjoyed. There were portions of blood essence of beasts in the jade box. There were 9 portions in total. It was written on the jade box that these were Class 6 LV4 demonic beasts blood essence. Lu Ming was overjoyed. 9 portions of Class 6 LV4 demonic beasts blood essence were terrifyingly expensive. It was equivalent to a Class 6 martial ancestor realm expert. It was difficult to buy it in the outside world. Lu Ming put it away carefully. He continued to move forward. Soon 8 demonic beasts at the early 4th level of the martial ancestor realm appeared. Lu Ming used them to practice his spear. After a while, the 8 demonic beasts exploded and dissipated on their own. What appeared in the glowing ball this time disappointed Lu Weiming. Chapter 287. Lu Ming put away his cultivation technique and continued forward. After walking for a while, Lu Ming realized that the 2 paths overlapped again. In front, Xian Yanqing stood quietly as if she was waiting for him. Xian Yanqing glanced at Lu Ming and walked forward without saying a word. With a flash of light, 16 demonic beasts appeared. This time 16 demonic beasts at the peak of the 4th realm of the martial ancestor realm appeared. Xian Yanqing fought with the demonic beasts. Shaoqing, why didn't you wait for me? Lu Ming rushed forward and laughed. Xian Yanqing snorted and glared at Lu Ming. She clapped her hands as if she was treating the demonic beasts as Lu Ming vented her anger on the demonic beasts. The demonic beasts were miserable and a few of them were defeated on the spot. This woman is so violent. Lu Ming muttered and shot out his spear. With the two of them working together, the demonic beasts were killed in a short while. The two of them stood facing each other and looked at each other in silence. If they wanted to continue, only one of them could go. Shao Qing, if you continue you will probably face Yang Liuji. If you can do it I will let you go. Lu Ming laughed. No need. I am no match for Yang Liuji. I will let you have this chance. But let me tell you, if you lose to Yang Liuji and lose the treasure at the top, I will not let you go. Xian Yanqing gritted her teeth. Lu Ming had the golden eye blood zombie, and he might be able to compete with Yang Liuji. Xian Yanqing knew that she was no match for Yang Liuji, and she might as well let Lu Ming have it. Haha, thank you. Lu Ming laughed. Xian Yanqing glanced at him and turned to walk down. At the foot of the mountain, more than 1,000 people were looking up the mountain. They had no idea what was happening on the mountain because the mountain path was covered by a layer of hazy light, and they could not see clearly. What do you think is up there? There must be treasures. The stone tablet said that it is a path for the disciples of Yun Imperial Palace. The rewards must be extraordinary. Unfortunately, we are too weak. We can't go up at all. I know the other 6 out of the 8. There's a young man and a young woman, but I've never seen them before. I wonder who they are to be able to suppress so many heroes and seize a path. As soon as Lu Ming and the others disappeared, the crowd below began to discuss. They waited and wanted to know what treasures there were on the mountain paths. Look, someone is coming down. Not long after, someone shouted. Everyone looked over and saw the short and fat young man walking down the 7th path. It's Kudong. Why is he here? What happened? Everyone was. Supernova. At this moment, 2 people walked down the 2nd and 6th paths respectively. These 2 were 2 of the 50 supernovas of the Blood Zhao Empire. Kudong, what happened? Everyone was guessing. Someone asked Kudong. Kudong was silent for a moment. He did not hide anything and told everyone what happened. I see. After passing a few stages, the 2 paths will meet and battle each other. No wonder the disciples of Yun Imperial Palace said it was a trial. I'm not surprised that Yang Liuji won. But according to Kudong, the beautiful woman on the 5th path defeated Supernova. That's unbelievable. That's right. If that's the case, Duanling will definitely lose if he encounters Yang Liuji. Then the 2 strangers will face each other, and the winner will face Yang Liuji. Yang Liuji has made it to the end without any suspense. I wonder who will win between the 2 strangers? Let's see. We will know soon. The crowd discussed as they waited. Not long after, someone came down. It was Duanling. He was staggering. His clothes were stained with blood. Duanling is injured. Did he fight with Yang Liuji? I think that's most likely the case. He's really overestimating himself. He wants to fight against Yang Liuji? He's already lucky to be able to keep his life. Yeah, even the leader of the 9 heroes of Inoue, Injuyo, is no match for Yang Liuji. Hey look! That woman is coming down. Someone suddenly shouted. The crowd looked at the 5th path and saw Xian Yanqing coming down. That woman is so powerful. She defeated Supernova, but she still lost? It seems like the other stranger is stronger. There are so many hidden dragons and crouching tigers. I wonder if that man can compete with Yang Liuji. That's impossible. That man's cultivation base is too weak. He's too weak compared to Yang Liuji. That's true. Even so, everyone's eyes were still wide open as they stared intently at the mountain path, revealing looks of anticipation. In the end, who would be the first to come down? After Xian Yanqing went down, Lu Ming continued to go up. There was a ball of light in front of him. This ball of light was actually a withered vine. The vine was only half a meter long and as thick as a finger. What's that? A withered vine? What's the use of it? Lu Ming was dumbfounded. He held the withered vine and looked left and right. He could not see anything special about it. It was like an ordinary withered vine. There was no vitality in it at all. Forget it. I'll keep it first. After all, he got it from the ruins of Imperial Yun Palace. He would not be given a withered vine. Maybe it would be useful. After keeping it, Lu Ming continued to go up. After a while, another demonic beast appeared. This time it was 4 demonic beasts in the early stage of Martial Grandmaster Realm. Martial Grandmaster Realm was 3 levels higher than Lu Ming. It gave Lu Ming a lot of pressure. Boom! Without hesitation, Lu Ming activated his bloodline. He did not activate the 9 Dragons bloodline. He activated his second bloodline. An ancient stone tablet appeared. The stone tablet was shrouded in gray mist and looked mysterious. Then the stone tablet entered Lu Ming's body. Lu Ming's strength increased tremendously. In the past, Lu Ming rarely activated his bloodline. It was not because he did not want to, but because the duration of the 9 Dragons bloodline was too short. It only lasted for a few breaths. But now that he had awakened his second bloodline, there was no such problem. At the Martial Grandmaster Realm, the duration of the bloodline activation was increased to an hour. It was enough for him to fight freely. After activating his bloodline, Lu Ming was extremely powerful. He rushed toward the 4 demonic beasts. Bam! He pulled out his spear and clashed with one of the demonic beasts. There was a loud boom and a blast of energy. He and the demonic beast retreated. Roar! The other 3 demonic beasts charged toward Lu Ming. Good timing! Lu Ming roared and rushed forward with the demon banishing spear in his hand. The demon banishing spear was shrouded in the power of wind and fire. As he waved it, it was extremely fast. At the same time, there was a burst of heat. It was extremely lethal. Boom! Boom! There were continuous explosions. During this process, Lu Ming did not let the blood zombie attack. Haha, great! Lu Ming's eyes lit up. He was completely immersed in the battle. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.